initiate of the Persian culture is given the name Zarathustra. And anyway, the Persian people, they had much more an affinity for working with the earth and getting to know it. They felt a lot differently. But still, for a long time, this longing to go back to the and live in the bosom of the spiritual world with the spiritual hierarchies and the spiritual beings that occupy those hierarchies, that was very strong. So and everywhere in the world located, and even today, there are mystery centers. And these were the initiates who knew about, I mean, all the stuff that Steiner talks about has been known since the beginning of time. I mean, this is not knowledge that he invented. No, it's not. I mean, it has been known, and these mystery centers that were present everywhere but were invisible to the population. They were hidden. And anyway, so this knowledge was cultivated there. And it was the mystery centers that cultivated alcohol. And the reason they cultivated alcohol, because alcohol has the effect of shutting us off from the spiritual world. It dims our consciousness so that we start to lose interest in the spiritual world. And that was appropriate at that time. Because as I said, we have been given physical bodies and live in the physical world for very good reasons. Spiritual reasons. And so it does behoove us to take an interest in and start to work with the earth and in our earthly realm. It's very important that we do that. And so the alcohol was devised by the mystery centers to be given to the people at various festivals so that they would then lose their interest and their longing for the spiritual world and start to pay attention to dealing with living in the material world and learning to not only cope in the material world, but to thrive in the material world and learn to love it and work with it. You know, the world of nature and earth and rocks and so forth. You know. And so that was appropriate for people to drink alcohol in those days, leading up to the Greco-Roman times. But at that time, it was time for humanity to stop drinking alcohol. And in fact, at the Last Supper that Christ had with his disciples, he did not drink wine. He drank grape juice. Because obviously it would have been somewhat inappropriate for Christ to feed his disciples wine when he knew very well that alcohol suppresses our interest and consciousness of the spiritual world. Now, of course, alcohol still carries out that mission today. So this incredible alcohol consumption is very, very, shall we say, counterproductive to any kind of spiritual development. I mean, I'm talking about real inner spiritual development. I'm not talking about learning all the creeds and the belief systems and this and that. No, I'm talking about living a spiritual life in our day-to-day basis. Alcohol shatters that. It cannot be done. And so many people that are so-called, quote-unquote, religious, and quote-unquote, spiritual, they drink alcohol. And it's a massive consumption. I mean, this is a massive consumption. I mean, you consider 172 pints of beer a year per person. And of course, as I said, children don't drink alcohol, at least not until they're 18 years old, hopefully, if they're going to drink it at all. So people are consuming vast amounts of alcohol. And so what is it they're doing? They're trying to forget. They want to forget. The whole point of alcohol is to forget. You want to forget your pain. You want to forget your misery. And you also want to forget the fact that you are a spiritual being, living in a spiritual world. That's what people want to forget. So there's a real cognitive dissonance here. And it's very important to understand that the attraction for alcohol, other than the psychological aspects, and of course I can get into the psychological aspects as time goes on, of living in this world today, because they play a tremendous role. I mean, it's not just, I'm focusing right now on the nutritional aspect, because as Steiner said, it is from nutrition through healing to civilization and culture. So we have to get the nutrition straightened out if we're going to have any hope of humanity making it through the next however many years it is. It has to start with nutrition. There's no point in having any kind of program for the progressive development of humanity if we do not change our way of eating from meat and sugar to whole grains and vegetables. It is not possible to make any progress if we don't do that. And of course what will happen, because this food problem, because I talked about the food problem from the point of view of population, and how the population problem is really not a problem, except that it is a problem because people eat meat and sugar. That's the cause of the population problem. Now, many people today, as I speak, are dying of starvation all over the world. And this starvation is being caused by the developed countries, of which China is joining. Okay, this population of 1.2 billion is joining the developed world in pursuing meat and sugar as the daily intake, dietary intake of choice. There simply isn't going to be enough food around to do that. It's not going to be there. I mean, we're having all kinds of problems with soil erosion. Soil erosion is the biggest cause of the destruction of civilizations by far, and we're having a problem with it. I just read a long paper about this whole food constraints, or should we say food resource problem. And we have not to start, or should we have to stop promoting and subsidizing the eating of meat and sugar and all those other things. We've got to stop doing that. So that the market price is reflected in the actual cost, the actual cost to produce meat. And they are horrendous. I mean, just even from a financial point of view, economic point of view. So, now, we are going to be constrained by the overpopulation, not because the earth cannot carry 6 billion people. It can do that very easily if those people are eating a diet of whole grains and vegetables, using less arable land than we're using today. It can be very easily done. But if we keep doing this incredible resource mismanagement, we will be constrained by the lack of food to be starting eating whole grains and vegetables anyway. I mean, it's the only proper course of action to take if you have this data at your fingertips. which is why I'm giving it to you. There's only recourse to this. Now, we're not even talking about the benefits of eating whole grains and vegetables, which I had talked about earlier episodes, you know, from a personal standpoint. And I even only touched that on a practical basis. I didn't even talk about the health, psychological and emotional and spiritual health consequences of eating a whole grain and vegetable-based diet. Suffice to say that you take care of your illnesses with no problem at all. Okay, so now, since we're getting close to the end of this particular episode, just to touch on the Medi-Cal problem. Social Security, it's very clear that the United States cannot afford those programs at all. Okay, it cannot be done. We cannot afford it. And it would be the best thing to happen to the American people if Medicare was axed tomorrow. Just axed it. Of course, everybody's going to be totally shocked when I say that, but it would be. Their health would improve dramatically over the next 2 years and further beyond if Medicare was axed tomorrow and you could not afford to get your medication. There's no question about it. And the death rate would go down. I mean, Medicare is simply a massive subsidy for the pharmaceutical industry. That's it. Those medications, of course, medications are the result of eating meat and sugar. Because as I've said, all these conditions I've talked about, what do people do? They go to the doctor to get medications, pills for those things. And the average American adult, 75% of which take one medication every day. 75% of the adults. And 25% of them take 5, on average, 5 medications a day. And they're totally useless, at best. And you don't need them. I mean, at worst, they get counterproductive. So it would be very good that Medicare was axed and Medi-Cal. Get rid of them. And of course, and it was going to happen anyway, because we cannot be afforded. It cannot be afforded. I mean, the day is fast approaching when Medi-Cal and Medicare will not be able to be afforded by the federal government. And the taxes that you pay to pay for Medi-Cal won't be able to cover it. And of course, we know Social Security is going down the tubes. I mean, that's inevitable. So you have to be prepared for all this. You know, I mean, I get Social Security payments, me and my wife. But we know that the only reason why we started when we did, when we were first eligible, was because we said, let's get it while we can. Because it's not going to be here much longer. That's just a fact. So, this Macarite way of life is just, you just emancipate yourself from all that. And you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to be in fear. You know, because this is the kingdom of fear. As Hunter Thompson wrote a book called The Kingdom of Fear. The whole thing is designed to put you into fear. You know, because that's the way the government operates. And all the authority, quote-unquote, figures. They operate on inducing fear. You don't need that. Not at all. So, anyway, so now, but I haven't finished with meat yet. You'd think I'd have exhausted. No, I have not. There's more to come. And the more to come stuff is actually pretty esoteric, but you need to know it. And I will start talking about that particular aspect of meat eating in the next episode. So anyway, I hope you're enjoying your summer. Although I understand that it's not very enjoyable back in the East Coast. Right here in Nevada, this is great weather we're having. You know, when 90 is about the highest we're getting. And it's really lovely. You know, beautiful days. But anyway, I hope you're coping with the hot weather. And I wish you a good night and a good evening and a good morning and a good day wherever you happen to be. Thank you very much.